I want to welcome everybody and thank all of you for participating this morning on this very important webinar that really kicks off a lot of the work ahead of us regarding our regional planning efforts. I want to thank the Mayor team for putting all the work that they have on this effort and going forward. It's been a very exciting process, and I'm very grateful also to all of our both local and state partners for their participation. And I think this is going to be a very great beginning. I think we're going to get through a lot of information. Please make sure that you ask questions. You're really sort of a critical foundation piece to this effort. You all as a team, you represent various sectors of sort of the workforce system, and we really firmly believe that it's this cooperation and collaboration that will really make the regional planning efforts that we're going to be undertaking highly successful. We, both at the department and with our state partners, will provide all the support we can to ensure that you feel confident in your role as we move through this effort. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to the Mayor team to take us through the rest of this presentation. Thank you all, and again, I look forward to the opportunity to our planning efforts, and thank you all again.
So I'll turn things over to Carrie Yeats, who's going to go over today. Thanks, Carrie.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it, and thank you, Julio, for the introduction. We really appreciate everyone being here this morning and appreciate your time to learn about this project, particularly if you haven't been, very close to these efforts. So we appreciate your trust in us and hope that we will share quite a bit of information with you through the course of the presentation. And, as Eric said, please feel free to type questions in the chat box or, later on in the presentation, feel free to ask questions over the phone. So let's go ahead and get started here. Again, my name is Carrie Yates, and I am the Director of the State and Regional Practice for Mayor, and I'm also the project manager for this project. So I appreciate your time. I'll introduce Gretchen Sullivan, my colleague on the call, a little bit later, and then the rest of the team who will be taking part in this project, over the next several months. So, Julio talked a little bit about the timing and the context of the project, and certainly the passage of WIOA has led us all to really deeply consider these topics such as regional planning, career pathways, sector strategies, and the extent to which we are all doing these things at the local, regional, and state level. The state, certainly has undergone quite a few planning initiatives. One of them, is most notable for our particular effort, and that's the NGA Talent Center Pipeline Policy Academy. And that project and that initiative is certainly influencing the work that we do. And really all of the efforts as a whole provide an opportunity to enhance alignment between our workforce development, economic development, and education partners. The idea, of course, is that, as resources shrink over time, it's really critical that we leverage our public and private resources and align them all around shared targets. So before we, jump into the presentation and really dive into regional planning concepts and this project in particular, I just wanted to give you a sample of some of the activities that will occur during the life of the project as they pertain to regions and really to all of you. Certainly we plan to support the regions across the state and regional planning efforts and sector strategy development. We will have facilitators assigned to each region who provide technical assistance to each region, and it's really going to be very customized depending upon where every region is. We certainly recognize that each region is in a unique place, both as just a region in general and certainly in a unique place related to the activities going on, the partnerships already in place, things of that nature. So our coaches will be able to really be very customized in terms of the work with each region. Another part of the project that's really important is developing consensus around regional industry targets, and that's something we'll talk more about, later on in the presentation. But that is a big piece of the project, especially in the next couple of months. And then, of course, a major goal throughout the entire project is to help regions either build or enhance industry-focused partnerships. So I think that just gives you a really quick introduction to, how our work might relate to the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And we'll talk more about them, as we go through the presentation. So just as an overview, today's agenda for our webinar, we'd like to spend the next hour and a half or so with you and talk a little bit about regional planning, those concepts and best practices, give you an overview of the project and the activities and deliverables that are a part of it, and then certainly talk quite a bit about regional team development. That is an important and really critical foundational element of the project, and so we do spend a lot of time and try to be really thoughtful about that part of the project. We would like to spend time with you in discussion to answer your questions about the project, to learn about your thoughts on how this project might connect with things that you're already doing at the local or regional level, and really get some feedback from you. And then the last portion of the presentation will be focused on next steps. One of those will be a self-assessment that we'll talk about, and then just some other activities and meetings coming up. So that's what we hope to do today during the course of the webinar. I'd like to just really quickly give you a brief overview about Mayor and Mayor and then introduce our project team. Mayor and Mayor has been doing talent development and change management consulting for the past 28 years. We're based out of New Jersey, but have folks really working all over the U.S. Our practice, that is the practice that is helping with this project, is the state and regional practice, and we do work with states, we do work with regions, community colleges, and a variety of organizations around the ideas of strategic planning, sector strategy development, process flow mapping, things of that nature. We also have a very robust federal practice that has a number of technical assistance contracts with EPA for things like sector strategies, WIOA, registered apprenticeship, and a number of others. And then, of course, we have a private practice, which is a great complement to the work that we do at the federal and state and regional levels. So that practice develops customized training for the private sector. So we have a really great balance, I think, of touches, if you will, with what's happening at the policy level of the federal government, with the realities and challenges of implementing those policies at the state, regional, and local level, and then really getting to know intimately what the private sector challenges have, what the challenges are of the private sector, as they implement training and talent development strategies in their businesses. I want to show you a brief slide here that just gives you literally a snapshot of our project team. These are the folks that we will be bringing to Illinois over the course of the project. As I said, my name is Carrie Yates, and I'm the project manager for this project. I have a dozen or so years of experience in workforce development and economic development, both as a practitioner and a consultant. So it's a great privilege to be working with you. Gretchen Sullivan is my colleague on the phone as well, and I wanted to allow her to introduce herself to you. She's really an integral part of this project. So Gretchen, I'll give you a minute to introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Thanks, Carrie. Well, good morning, everyone. We're so glad to be here with you, and it's great to see the turnout on this call. Just by way of background and letting you know a little bit about myself and my role on the project, I've been with Mayor and Mayor since 2007 and primarily working in our state and regional practice with our state clients and with regional and local clients on a variety of different things. Among them, state planning and regional planning among various partners, strategic plan development, supporting partnerships in that. We've done a lot of work around industry sector strategies as well as career pathways and have done a lot of project work with that. And also have done some work looking at, as Carrie mentioned earlier, from a service delivery perspective, customer flow and process flow mapping and redesign in career centers. So a couple of different areas that I think are really germane to the work that we'll be doing in this project. And in terms of my role on this project, I will be working with some of the regional teams as well as some of the other facilitators that are noted here on this slide. And I'm also serving as kind of a coordinator among the facilitators as we move forward in our technical assistance roles with the teams. So I'm really, really excited to be a part of this project, and also did some work in the last year with the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity and the Illinois Community College Board. So it's really nice to see some familiar names here today, and really looking forward to the opportunity to work with the state again. So thanks. Thanks, Carrie.
Thanks, Gretchen. Appreciate it. Just a few others I'd like to mention. Rick Mayer is our president and CEO. He was with us in September when we met with the leadership team for this project, and so he will certainly be involved over the life of the project. Arnie Lifter is an important advisor to our team. Scott Sheely is our data consultant, and so you'll get to know him over the course of the next few months. And then the remaining folks pictured on that slide, Rodney, Sylvia, Kathy, Paulette, and along with Gretchen will be our facilitators. So you'll be assigned a facilitator to work with you over the life of the project, and certainly we'll get to know them as we go moving forward. So just wanted to give you a quick overview of our team. This next slide is we really would like to get to know you a little bit. It's certainly challenging to interact very much when we are in a virtual setting like this, but we'd really like to hear from you certainly later on. But right now we thought we would ask you which partner group you represent, just so we can get a sense of the type of audience we have, and if all organizations or partners are represented. So I see many of you are doing that now. Please continue to click the box and let us know which group you belong to. That's very helpful for Gretchen and I, so thanks for doing it. And, just while the rest of you are filling that out, just to remind you that if you would please, feel free to ask questions and type them into the chat box. We'll be monitoring that so we can be sure we address them throughout the presentation. There are also, different points in time that we'll stop and ask for questions. So I know Eric will help us with that process when we get there, as far as unmuting your line. Okay, thank you. It looks like we've got about half of you are representing workforce development, strong contingency from the Community Action Development Agency, as well as adult ed and economic development. Okay, very good. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. I'm going to turn it over to Gretchen now and let her take the presentation and talk a little bit about regional planning and then information about our process.
Great, thanks, Carrie. Right, so we wanted to spend a little bit of time with you sort of explaining the strategic framework for the work that we'll be doing together under the project, just to set the stage for talking in a bit more detail about the project itself. So, in terms of our overall project objectives, what we're focused on very broadly here is building the talent pipeline in regions across Illinois and supporting the regional teams with a framework and a process for developing and implementing plans that both meet businesses' needs and offer opportunities, obviously, to job seekers and students. And so, a critical component of this is supporting the development or enhancement of really diverse regional partnerships that are aligning around talent development approaches, helping those teams to further develop their industry cluster strategies and to embed career pathways strategies. And I think critically working with the partnership teams to identify resources, both financial and otherwise, that can be better integrated and aligned to support their strategic goals. So that's a critical component of this. But, overall, just really kind of focusing on building that talent pipeline, simultaneously meeting both the needs of businesses and enhancing career opportunities for job seekers and students across the state. So that's our overall kind of guiding project objective and what we're hoping to achieve. And let me just talk through a little bit, sort of in terms of our strategic framework and how we'll be pursuing that. We're really trying to come at this from the perspective of aligning around a shared vision and shared goals. And so from, the perspective of building that talent pipeline, really looking at how we can connect across partner systems to really articulate those resources together to develop the workforce that businesses in Illinois need. And so obviously we're looking at the full range of education partners, K through 12, in post-secondary, economic development organizations, the workforce system, and that is, I mean that broadly and inclusively. There are obviously, a wide range of partners that are involved in this, and really connecting our activities and our assets to the needs of targeted industry clusters in the state. And we think about it, again, really from a talent pipeline perspective. So, thinking about no matter where our customers come to us in terms of their skill levels, their needs, the kind of services or assistance that they might need to be successful, really aligning across partners and different programs, and really kind of trying to connect to wherever those workers need assistance, and aligning the services that we're providing to the talent needs of those target industry sectors. And, this is just an example with some particular sectors. The ones in your regions and in Illinois may be different, but really the notion of wherever folks come to us in terms of workforce services and education, really articulating the full range of services among partners to the needs of those industries. And I think in terms of how we think about, the opportunities under regional planning, there really are some exciting transformations that are happening and can happen. And so we think about it from two different perspectives, I think. One from the strategic level, thinking about how aligning partners across programs and systems around shared goals and strategies really shifts to a focus where the needs of a region in terms of workforce, economic trends, and education are really the drivers of service delivery strategies, rather than programs and funding streams kind of driving that as the front end. It's an opportunity really to align partners' plans and policies and what they want to do around resource investment, rather than having those decisions be made kind of in silos, if you will. And really kind of coordinating programs and resources across those various entities and programs to focus on that vision for talent pipeline development. We think among, this kind of an approach among all the partners really enables organizations to serve more in the capacity as catalysts and conveners and champions, and can really energize the work that organizations are doing. And obviously a critical goal of the work we're doing here is really building, deep relationships with groups of employers and sectors that are important to your regions, and sustaining and growing those relationships over time. So from a strategic perspective, I think those are some of the kinds of transformations that can be achieved. And we'll be talking in this project about, okay, then how does that impact then the service delivery level? So what does that mean, excuse me, for how business services are delivered? And how can business services at the regional level be organized among various organizations, be connected so that multiple agencies are coordinating around that? Really trying to connect training investments and decisions around training that's developed and delivered to the defined needs of the industry clusters that are important in your region, as well as connecting credential attainment to those needs. So really kind of being intentional and strategic around the kinds of credentials that employers in these clusters are looking for. At the Career Center level and at other service delivery levels, really thinking about what does it mean to organize regionally and with, paying attention to the needs of target industry clusters, and how does that change how service delivery points are organized, staffed, and how services are delivered. And, again, kind of shifting from a job placement goal, which is a critical component of this, but really to a long-range career development goal, and that really gets to the whole career pathways piece. Which is a really critical part of this as well, and we're really mindful of the work that's been done in Illinois, that's being done in Illinois already around career pathways, and that's something that's very important to us to integrate in the work that we do with regional teams moving forward. So let me just pause there. That was kind of to give you a high-level sense of the strategic framework that we are using for this project, and that's kind of guiding our process. And before we get into a bit more detail about the project itself. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them if you want to enter them in the chat, or if you want to chime in over the phone, it's *6 to unmute your line. But just wanted to pause before we move forward. Okay. I'm not hearing any at this point, so we'll keep moving forward. But as Eric mentioned earlier, at any point if you have any questions, please just chime in the chat. We're happy to take those for you. So I want to talk a little bit, getting more into the details about this project in particular, about sort of the framework that we are using broadly in our work with teams. Carrie mentioned, and I really want to emphasize, that while we do have a framework that has been really successful in the work that we've done with other states and regions, we're very committed to working with each regional team here, wherever it is, and depending upon whatever its priorities are. And so the coaching work that our facilitators will be doing with you will really be customized to your particular goals and needs. But wanted to share with you a little bit in terms of the framework that's guiding how we approach regional planning. And really this slide is meant to show some of the critical success factors that we have experienced as being really essential in doing, industry sector-focused regional planning work, as a collaborative among partners. Importantly, data is a critical component of this. Carrie mentioned that piece earlier in her comments, and we know that regions are doing a lot to use data to identify their target industry clusters, and a key component of our work on this project is to bring some data to that conversation and really look at what's going on in terms of, economic trends, workforce trends, and industry trends throughout regions in the state. So data is one critical success factor of this work. A shared regional vision is obviously really critical, and that is work that we'll be doing with the teams to really understand, among the partners, what is the vision in each region and aligning around that. Obviously, this regional work will be driven by industry, by businesses in your regions who play a critical role in articulating their needs so that strategies and service delivery can be aligned. And that strategic alignment, as well as that sort of service delivery transformation, will be a key part of the planning work that we do with teams over time, over the next several months. So looking at, when partners are aligned around that shared vision and focused on the needs of target sectors, how do we better link policies across partners, plans across partners, and what does that look like at the service delivery level? And then critically, in terms of measuring impacts, what's working, what might need to be tweaked, how are we getting feedback on how we're doing, and how are resources being identified and articulated to ensure sustainability. So that's just an overview of our kind of critical success factors that we keep an eye on throughout processes like this to make sure we're on target. And this graphic gives you more of a sense of kind of the process itself. I think it's really important to emphasize again that these are not necessarily sequential steps. This isn't a linear process, and that regions are going to be in different places in terms of what their priorities are around planning. But I think this helps give a broad overview of the kinds of planning work that can be done with regional teams. So obviously, starting with defining the actual economic region, we are working in the 10 economic development regions that Illinois has identified, and gathering and sharing and discussing data around those economic regions. Forming regional leadership teams that will be collaborating among partners to develop their plans and then ultimately implement the strategies that they identify. Making sure that work is guided by a shared vision. Moving into actually assessing talent needs, and that's a critical component of the engagement with employers, and validating what those needs are, and making sure that services and strategies are aligned to those needs. The resource alignment piece that you see in Part 5, as we mentioned earlier, is critical here, looking at what assets are available in regions among partners that can be articulated to support the work that you want to do. And then critically, the actual implementation piece and the ongoing assessment of impacts and sustainability. So this is broadly a process that we've worked through with any number of clients. Again, it isn't linear, and we're going to work with each team wherever it is, depending upon what their priorities are. But that helps to give you, I hope, a bit of a sense broadly of the work that we'll be doing moving forward. So let me pause again there and see if there are any questions. We're going to go into a bit more detail next. Carrie is around the details of our project and in terms of, a bit more granular level. But if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them now in the chat or over the phone. Okay. Well, again, we'll see as we move forward. If you do have any questions, please do share those at any time there in the chat. I just want to say we have dedicated some time just in a little bit to actually engage in some discussion with you to hear a little bit about each of the region's current work, as Carrie mentioned, any questions they may have around how this project sort of connects to that and might help advance the work that you're doing. So we're really looking forward to hearing more from you in just a little bit after we talk in more detail about the project. But with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Carrie to talk a little bit more about our project and give an overview.
Great, thank you, Gretchen. So, just to give you a little bit of an overview of our key project activities, I first want to just reorient us to the idea of the goals of the project. Keep in mind that the goal of our project is to help build the talent pipeline in Illinois. We want to help businesses. We want to help meet the needs that businesses have for skilled workers and meet the needs that workers have for good jobs. So to do that, we need to better align economic development, workforce development, and education. So that's really the whole goal of these activities. And the project is really designed with a two-pronged approach. The first one is at the state level. And at the state level, we have formed a leadership team to really guide the overall activities of the project, to champion the work that's being done at the state level as well as at the regional level. And then the other piece at the state level is identifying statewide target industry clusters, and that is work that is ongoing right now. At the same time, we're also working at the regional level, and the first step there would be to form regional teams, and that's really what this call is all about, to introduce you all who would be members of regional teams to the concept of the project and to the work that we hope to do moving forward with you. Really important in that regional process is identifying industry target clusters for each individual region. So Scott Sheely, our data consultant, is going to be pulling information together that can be shared with your team, and it is about your region, and we can help facilitate and guide the process to help you determine what your regional industry target clusters are. So the idea is to form consensus around those clusters, consensus from workforce development, from economic development, and education. So that's why those partnerships are so very important. So our facilitators, as I mentioned, will be helping each team kind of through this planning process, and we'll be providing planning and technical assistance, over the period of several months, even beyond January. So they'll be very involved overall. After January, we will be, let me talk first about the regional team meetings. So in December, we will have 3 regional team meetings where we really will initiate the regional planning process, go through the results of a self-assessment, talk about your target industry clusters, and do a SWOT analysis. So that's some of the high-level subjects that will be dealt with at the regional team meetings in December. After the first of the year, we will have a statewide summit where we come together, again, all regions come together in one big meeting this time and continue their regional plan development. So our facilitators will be on hand in December, and then again when we have the summit after the first of the year. So regional planning, development, and technical assistance will continue to be provided by our facilitators after the first of the year, even beyond the statewide summit. We don't have the date set yet for that, but facilitators will be available to assist, every region, depending on what their needs are, over the life of the project. So Kevin, I see your question about the sites for the regional meetings, and oh, good. Thank you, DCEO, for chiming in. I was going to ask if you could give the specific location. Thank you. So we've talked a lot over the course of the presentation about our economic regions, or our regions, and so just wanted to give you the framework that we're certainly looking at. The regions, or the local areas, are grouped into regions according to their economic development regional areas, and so that's how the regional teams are going to be formed according to those boundaries. So this gives you a sense of, what those boundaries look like. The context, of course, for our project is planning at the regional level, and this is really where you would be developing partnerships and service strategies as a region. So, much of the work of this project, particularly at this point in time, is about forming teams with the right members: economic development, workforce development, education, community development action group, agencies, community college. All of those folks are really critical, and so Gretchen's going to spend quite a bit of time talking about that here in a minute. But just wanted to give you a little bit more information about the context for the regions and what that looks like. So this is just a list of deliverables so you can get a sense of, really what kind of the outcomes are, I suppose. The first, of course, would be data reports for each region and the state as a whole. So every geography would have its own data report that's customized to that area. We're also putting together regional planning guides. Some of those documents are actually available for download. Eric will probably put that file download pod back up later, but the PowerPoint is available there. There is a project overview document. There's a document that provides guidance for forming regional teams, and then also a summary of the NGA Policy Academy. So those are important pieces that you might want to download before the presentation is over. We talked a little bit about the idea of a self-assessment, and this is something that Gretchen will talk about a little further in the presentation, but the self-assessment is something that we'll be sending out to you before the meetings in December, asking your teams to complete so that when we meet together in December, the results of the assessment can be reviewed. We talked about the December meetings already and a little bit about the summit, which will be a deeper level dive into planning than what you will get started on in the regional meetings. And then, of course, we will be providing recommendations for each region as they move forward, with certain priority areas that, maybe have been identified that need additional work. So, again, it will be something that will be developed for each particular region. And then at the end of the project, we will provide a final report to DCO with, accomplishments over the course of the project, findings, and then recommendations for moving forward. So we've had some good questions about the December meetings, and I really appreciate those, and thanks to DCEO for providing that information. Any other questions about the project overall that I can answer at this point in time? Again, feel free to type your question in the chat or unmute yourself, whichever is more comfortable for you. I see Jerry is typing in a question, so here we go. One self-assessment or multiple by partner. So it will be one document, and so each member of the regional team will complete the same document. And then our facility. Go ahead.
Terry, this is Lisa. I just want to make sure that we all understand that each of the regions will write their own plan, and that your recommendations and final report are to support their ability and provide them information to finalize that plan.
Certainly, the process that we are going through with each region will definitely inform the WIOA plans that each region must submit. Certainly the requirements of the plan that needs to be submitted go above and beyond the work of this particular project, but absolutely, they definitely dovetail, and this will certainly inform the work that each region will be doing, on their own to write that entire plan. Thank you, Lisa. Other questions or comments? Please don't be shy. We would love to hear.
Hi, this is Jennifer Serino. I just have a follow-up question to your answer to Jerry's question. Jerry asked if it's one self-assessment or multiple by partner, and you said one for each partner?
It's the same tool, the same self-assessment tool that each person or each partner will complete. So depending upon the region, you know, one region might want to get together to complete that. Another region may want to email it to the members of their team and then ask for each member to, you know, fill it out and send it back to them. So it's going to probably vary by region. Am I answering your question, though?
So it could be one collective assessment for the region, or it could be multiple assessments, depending on how the region treats that tool.
That's right, and this is Gretchen. I can talk a little bit more about that in talking further about team development, kind of upcoming next steps. But yeah, it is one tool that all the partners on a team will be completing. And as Carrie said, you know, we can work with each team depending upon how they want to do it. Some may wish to come together either virtually or in person to kind of talk it through and debrief it as a group. Some partners may want to each complete it independently, and then the results of the self-assessment responses will be forwarded to team facilitators, and then we'll take a look at them and kind of get a bead on, you know, where generally regional partners feel they are, if there are any differences, you know, significant differences in perspectives, that sort of a thing. So we try to be really flexible with, you know, however regional teams want to go through that self-assessment exercise, but we really do try to use it just to get a sense of, you know, where regions' priorities are and where they think they have opportunities that they might want to focus on.
So how important is this tool going to be in developing the regional plan? Where are you seeing that fall into the whole planning process? Is this a kickoff point, the tool, or is it just gauging participation?
Well, Gretchen might turn. Oh, sorry, Gretchen. Go ahead.
No, I think, you know, the self-assessment is not directly tied to the requirements of WIOA regional plans. It really is tied more to the success factors that we ran through earlier around organizing regionally to develop, you know, collaborative industry sector strategies, integrated service delivery, resource alignment, that sort of a thing. So the self-assessment is really designed to get regional partners senses of where they are in terms of those critical success factors. You know, so it really is, you know, it's not directly tied specifically to WIOA plan requirements, but certainly includes elements that obviously WIOA has a strong emphasis on as well. And, you know, it really is, it's a brief, the ones that we've used with teams in the past, which obviously we'll be customizing for this process, it's brief. It would take 10 minutes at most to fill out. It really is just trying to get regional partners' sense of where they think they are and where and to be able to start a conversation around where they might want to focus their planning efforts together.
Any other questions? Susan asked a good question about the writing of the plan and who takes the lead on generating the document, and will there be a prototype to work from? If you're talking, Susan, about the WIOA plan that each region needs to submit to the state, then I probably would need to defer to DCEO to respond, but I understand, generally speaking, that there's going to be an outline, although I'm sure there's a lot more detail there that the DCEO team might be able to share. Julio, John, Lisa.
So this is Julio. So we have a writer for the overall plan, because the plan this part of the plan is just one component. There are also multiple components related to very specific requirements. And we will develop an outline for each of the regional plans so that you have at least a consistent outline that everyone will follow for putting together their plans.
Thanks, Julio. Well, I see it looks like Peggy's typing. Carrie, do you want me to move into, let's just see. Okay, Peggy just said it sounds like the confusion that folks might be having is related to the fact that this sector-based regional planning project is actually separate from our WIOA planning. And I guess I would defer to the Department of Commerce to chime in there, but I think we also have some thoughts around how actually we're really trying to make sure that this project is supportive of the work that you all are doing around your WIOA planning.
This is Julio again. It isn't separate because regional planning has to be part of the overall unified plan. So this is critical to the component that's specific to regional planning.
Thanks, Julio. And we really do, I mean, this again, in terms of our work with your teams, we really want to make sure that where we're focusing on this process is supportive of your efforts to develop that plan, and we'll incorporate that as much as possible into the framework that we're developing for the self-assessment and for the work that we do together, both in person with teams and in terms of virtual technical assistance. So we'll be real mindful to help make that connection. Okay, Carrie, do you want me to, unless there are other questions, do you want me to move on into talking a little bit about the regional team development work?
Yeah, that sounds good, and we can certainly stop and take other questions as they come up. It all dovetails together, so I think that's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. We really appreciate you all chiming in and sharing those questions. Thank you. Okay, so I just wanted to talk, as Carrie mentioned, a little bit more about the regional teams in particular and regional team development. We're really glad to see the diversity on this webinar today of folks that are represented, and we're looking forward to working with the teams as they've been assembled thus far to help expand them and bring some other partners into the development of those teams. So in terms of the roles of regional teams over the project, we just wanted to talk a little bit about that. Again, first, the teams, as we were just talking about, will participate in a self-assessment exercise, to help determine each region's kind of current state relative to where they are in terms of regional planning and the development of sector strategies. And again, that's just a brief exercise, but I think really helpful in terms of figuring out where opportunities are, where priorities might be, and just getting a sense from among the regional partners around where they feel they are and where they might want to focus moving forward. A second critical piece, as Carrie mentioned earlier, is obviously attending your regional meeting that second week in December, and then the statewide summit, and be responsible for planning activities at those meetings and afterward. We'll be starting the self-assessment exercise with you in advance of the December regional meetings, so we'll be sharing that in advance, and we'll be asking the team to work on that in advance of the December regional meeting, so that when we get with you at your regional meetings in December, we'll really be using that to kind of jumpstart our conversation together. But we'll be working, as facilitators with teams to help support kind of key elements of your planning process during the meetings and afterward. And then, in terms of sort of regions' roles as advocates, that is a critical role, really advocating across the partners and leading the development of these shared strategies and the alignment of resources among partners and the integration of service delivery, at that actual ground level. So those are kind of the critical roles that are envisioned for regional teams in this project. We want to talk a little bit about regional team membership. I think, as you can see from this list, we are really trying to build diverse and representative and inclusive teams from among a wide variety of partners that have expertise and a stake in talent development across their regions. So, today we have a number of these folks, these different partner groups represented on the phone, which is terrific. Moving forward, the facilitators will be working with teams, and teams themselves will be reaching out to partners to bring some others into the tent, if you will. It's critical, moving forward, that your industry partners, business representatives, are engaged in this work, so they will be significant members of this team. But just, really kind of a wide range of folks who can bring a lot of expertise as well as their assets to this collaborative work together. So we're really looking for diverse teams, and we'll be working with you very shortly to support you in the continued development of those regional teams. Just in terms of some thoughts on who you might want to engage as you work on team development, here are just some questions that I think are helpful to consider. Obviously, who are your existing key partners? We know that a tremendous amount of work has been done across the state. There's a lot of great partnerships already in place, so those ones are probably already at the table with you. Who are your more emerging partners, that maybe more in the beginning stages? And I just saw a question from Kevin around our community action agencies and CSBG members, part of these teams, and the answer is yes, absolutely. We're glad to see many of you representing those organizations here today, and we definitely envision them as part of these teams. And I'm sorry, yes, there's another comment about they weren't listed. Sorry, I think there's a bullet here just to jump back. Our community development partners, that's what we meant to convey, so please know that while we don't have community action agencies specifically, partners that are doing that kind of work are critical to this effort, so definitely. So again, just thinking about who are maybe emerging partners that, that are showing some promise or that you're beginning to do some work with that you want to engage in this work. Who's kind of outside of your sphere right now, but that you have an interest in bringing in around collaborative work. So I think that's a critical question. And then other key questions obviously are who are really, thought leaders and champions in your region? Who has a lot of energy and passion around this work that you would want to bring in to be part of your team? Who's well connected to the critical industries that you're focused on in your regions, and really who is essential to helping you implement the priorities that you're developing or are going to further develop as we move forward in the project process. So just some thoughts on the team development piece. And again, we as facilitators will be working with our teams to support that work moving forward. In terms of what's on the horizon for regional teams, we just wanted to see, we wanted to share with you some key elements for moving forward. Again, we know teams are beginning to develop now. You'll be continuing to bring additional folks in to expand those regional teams moving forward. One of the things we're asking each regional team to do is to identify a point of contact from the team for your mayor and mayor facilitator. And that is largely just to support logistics and communications. We as facilitators will do our absolute best to be in communication with the full range of partners that are on the team, and that's really critical. But just from a kind of logistical perspective of sharing information and communication and logistical planning, we're asking you to think about who might be an appropriate point of contact from your team to work with your mayor and mayor facilitator. As we mentioned, we'll be asking you all to complete the regional self-assessment in preparation for your December regional meeting, so we'll be getting that out to you in November and giving you plenty of advance time for the partners to complete that and submit it back to their facilitator to use as kind of a discussion point for our December regional meetings. In terms of those 3 meetings, we'll be focused on a couple of different areas of work. First, introducing the regional industry cluster data that we are gathering, reviewing as a team the self-assessment results and having a discussion around those as a potential driver of some areas of focus for the planning work we'll be doing during that meeting and the follow-up statewide meeting. Conducting the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis relative to the self-assessment results as a further exercise in identifying key planning priorities for the team moving forward. So those are sort of the key areas of the work that we'll be doing together in December. As Carrie mentioned, the statewide summit we're anticipating in early 2016, where all the teams will be coming back together. And then through March, ongoing development of plans, and we will be available as facilitators to provide technical assistance, primarily virtually, but possibly in person, depending upon team needs throughout the remainder of the project. So that's kind of the broad horizon for upcoming team work. In terms of more immediate project next steps, just wanted to really highlight those. preparing for your work as teams in regions. Again, we're asking you to think about who can serve as a point of contact for your team, for your facilitator. We are working on developing the regional self-assessment for teams for distribution next month, and we as facilitators, we will soon be making individual facilitator assignments. Your facilitators will be reaching out to you and making themselves available to advise, to give you any assistance that you might need, to give you the self-assessment when that's ready, and to answer any questions around getting that completed. We're also, as Carrie mentioned, working on the data analysis piece for regional industry clusters to get that ready for you for the December meetings, and then, ongoing planning work leading up to the statewide summit early next year and after. So those are some immediate project next steps for us as well as for the regional teams. Let me pause there and see if there are any other questions that we can answer about the team development piece before we jump into a discussion with you all, where we're looking forward to hearing more about the work that you and your partners are doing. Looks like we have a couple of questions coming in the chat. And again, feel free to chime in over the phone as well if you'd like, just *6 to unmute. Okay, we have a question from Carrie. What is the methodology for identifying regional clusters? And our data partner, Scott, is not on the phone, and he would be, I think he would be best suited to communicate more specifically the methodology. But Carrie, do you want to take a quick crack at that, or you want me to try?
Well, I think we all defer to Scott for specific methodology questions, but in general, he's going to be looking at location quotient and competitiveness, industry growth, just job creation, various growth factors. So he'll present a variety of data points and pieces of information to you that you can use as an input to your process. Certainly it doesn't replace on-the-ground intelligence and things that are going on in your region, but that would be a piece of it. We can definitely also send something around to you guys as a follow-up that elaborates on that, though.
Yeah, hi, this is John Barr, and I also want to emphasize that we do have a data team that has folks with the Mayor Group, also with IDES and Community College, and with Department of Commerce and others that will be reviewing a number of data sources to present the information to the state and the region. So a number of different data sources will definitely be considered and provided as part of the process, but this is something that will provide additional detail as it's developed between now and December.
Thanks, John. And just wanted to also reiterate that it is definitely a regional process, from our perspective, and each region would be, making a determination for themselves what their targets would be, because certainly what is right for one region may not be right for another. So it'll be, a unique data analysis and data package, if you will, for each region.
Great, thanks. And I think both of you, thanks for those comments, have conveyed this, but just want to emphasize our data work on this project is being provided to teams really as a resource for discussion among the teams to augment what they may already be doing. So in terms of sharing the regional cluster data, we really hope that that's a value add for you. It's shared not to dictate your selection of regional targets, but to have a conversation. So I also saw a question, will the data be available prior to the regional meetings? And yes, our practice is to send the regional data around to the teams a little bit in advance of those regional meetings so that they have a chance to take a look at it, and then we really kind of get into it and digest it when we're together at the regional meetings. A question came in around determining, a couple questions actually came in around determining the point of contact for the mayor facilitator. So I think the team really needs to determine who's best positioned to be that point of contact. We're not saying that it needs to be one particular partner or another. We're kind of asking you guys to think a little bit about that and to get back to us. I think from a logistical perspective, and it looks like this question maybe came from Kathy Lively and her team. Hi, Kathy. The question is, would it be per core partner or really one person as the contact for the regional leadership team? From a logistical perspective, we would like to have one lead person that we can communicate with, maybe a lead person and a backup if you all would prefer that. But again, that's just, sort of to help with the communication piece. But obviously, we really want to make sure that we're focused on the full range of partners that obviously we'll be working with. So great. I hope that helped answer the question. Okay. Any other questions before we move forward? Okay. Well, what we were really hoping to do next, and really glad that you all are chiming in the chat and over the phone, was to hear, hopefully from as many of you as we can, and get some input from you and just kind of have a conversation. You all have raised some really great questions so far around the project, but if you have any other questions, reactions, thoughts you want to share about the project, we certainly want to discuss that with you. And these are just some other areas that we thought we'd really like to hear from the various partners that are on the phone today around. So, what critical initiatives or activities is your area really focused on? We'd love to hear about, what's a priority for you right now and how you see that this project might dovetail with those priorities or help support the work that you're doing. If you have any thoughts on potential areas of focus that you'd like to think about moving forward, we'd love to hear from you on that. And, any reactions to, what opportunities are you trying to pursue or potentially barriers or challenges that you're working through that you think this project might be able to help you address. So any input from the group around any of these areas, these are just kind of general conversation starters that we'd love your feedback on. I'm seeing some questions coming in the chat. We're all local partners invited to be a part of this webinar, and I want to let Department of Commerce chime in too on this. Maybe I'll let you guys start unless you want me to start.
Yes, so if you remember, this is Julio. If you remember the list that we went through, we asked each of the groups that represent each of those partners, whether it was workforce or economic development, we asked each group to select people who would represent each of the regions for this phone call. And then we are doing another webinar on November 3rd that will be open to anyone in the state that is one of those local partners to get a similar overview to what you're getting today. But for today's purposes, we ask that specific people get selected for each of the regions for each of those particular partner areas. So workforce, adult ed, community development, economic development. So we tried to get at least one representative to be part of the core team for each of those entities with the idea that then they would go back to their local partners and impart the information. And then as a backup, we're also doing a November 3rd meeting where we'll present similar information, but that will be open to a much larger audience.
Excellent. Thanks, Julio. We also got another question around, since the process is so closely tied to WIOA, doesn't it make sense that the WIOA directors be the points of contacts for the team? And I wanted to see, Julio and team, if you wanted to chime in on that as well.
Yeah. So the WIOA plan really speaks to the need for cross-integration and collaboration, and with a strong emphasis on partners and teams working together to put together the unified plan and to do regional planning. That's why we think it was important that this be an effort that is really more distributive and more representative of a larger representation of what the WIOA requirements ask for. So that's why we've invited specifically adult ed, our Wagner-Preiser partners, our vocational rehabilitation partners, and others who are part of the new legislation to really take an active role and to be part of all of the planning efforts that we're doing. And so that's why we didn't specifically leave it just as one Title I activity, and that's why we're allowing you all to choose who will be the single point of contact, and then maybe the Title I workforce people. But we think it's important that we set a new message that this is a collaborative process and that working together going forward is very critical to us meeting the overall goals of the new legislation.
Thanks so much, Julio. Any other questions? Okay. Well, certainly if they arise, keep them coming in the chat and chime in over the phone. We are hoping to hear from some of you around the work that you're doing in your regional areas right now and what some of your current priorities are or how you think this project might be of value to you in the work that you're doing. So really was hoping to engage in a bit of conversation with you to learn a little bit more about what each of you are doing in your areas. I think I heard.
Hello, this is Vic Narousis. How are you today?
Doing very well. Thanks so much. How are you?
Well, I just want to note, I'm from the business development side with the state of Illinois in the Department of Commerce, and the one thing we hear with virtually every firm we meet with is workforce and education issues, and we're very pleased to see this closer relationship with workforce and education. It's critically important for us to continue to provide for families and allow companies to succeed in addressing these needs. So we're very pleased to see this even closer relationship and really look very much forward to participating in this very fully. So thanks for including us.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Well, thanks so much for your comments. Yeah, it's critical, and I'm glad that it's coming through that it's critical to us for this project too, and really happy for your engagement and enthusiasm about it. Thanks for your comments. Be interested to hear others' perspectives on, some of the critical priorities they're focused on and how we might better support you in that on this project. See a couple folks typing, it looks like. Okay. Let's see. One of the comments that we've got from Mantricon, our 2 workforce areas have participated in a joint day-long training with all the partners, and you're now forming a leadership team to determine how to proceed right in your very large geographic EDR. Great. That's great. We hope to utilize technology at your community colleges to bridge the driving distance gap. It looks like you're probably still typing a little bit more. That's terrific that you all, and I assume many other regions have gotten involved in this work as well, but have brought the partners together and are beginning to form that leadership team. And terrific that you're looking at some strategies. Obviously, it sounds like the work that you're already doing is really aligned with the project approach that we're hoping to support you on. So we'll do everything we can to make sure that we're assisting you in making progress on this effort that you've already started. So that's excellent.
Just to follow on that question and comment, are there other local workforce areas who have begun, any work with their larger region? I'm wondering if anyone else is doing any similar meetings or trainings with other partners. Okay, Pam, thank you. I see your comment about doing some joint training as well.
Oh, terrific. And that's great that you guys are including best practices training. That's wonderful. Getting some concrete examples there. Excellent. We have. I'd be interested. I know we've got, I think about 50% of our group today was kind of, broadly identified as the workforce system. I think roughly 20% identified as being, with community action agencies and community development. I'd be particularly interested in hearing from those folks around some of the work that they are currently doing and how we might be able to best support that and move it forward through this project. Could I get any of you all representing that partner group to chime in? Got it. Okay. Thanks, Kevin. So you're both the CSBG and WIOA. I'd be interested in hearing more about the work that you've been doing in your region or your particular areas of focus. We have a couple folks typing.
I'm wondering too, if there's anyone representing, a university or a community college who might want to chime in and talk about any thoughts that they have about how, this project, it certainly would impact them or opportunities to be involved, any initiatives going on. I know that that's obviously a critically important partner in this process, and so I'm curious about anything that that education might be able to add.
Oh, great. All right. So, Suzanne, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, you guys are initiating the process for doing the 5-year rewrite of your SEDS strategy, and that this may tie in nicely with that. I certainly think it. I really do think that it would, and that's kind of nice. That's really nice timing, it seems to me, to try to make sure that we link those two efforts and kind of take advantage of where they can intersect. So that's terrific. That's great. Thank you. I'm going to let a couple more folks chime in. I see a couple more people typing. Thanks, Lori. So you all are providing a broad range of human services, and that you're actively collaborating with your other WIOA partners. That's terrific. That's great to hear. And, we'll want to learn more as we get to work with you and the rest of your team about the kind of strategies and activities you're pursuing. Thank you very much. Hi, Jennifer. How are you? Thanks for chiming in. So adult ed and the career technical education systems have focused a great deal on developing pathways for those without high school diplomas and those who lack language skills through your IBES model. That's great. Blending CTE training with adult basic ed skills. That's wonderful. That's really exciting, and we know how much work you all have done in that. That's terrific to hear, and I think we'll want to think about ways to, leverage that and expand it for other regions across the state who may want to, enhance their work in that area. That's terrific. Thank you for chiming in. All right, so the workforce boards of Metro Chicago, thanks, Jennifer, for chiming in. You have worked collaboratively together for years and formed a regional consortium with the community colleges. That's terrific. And you're asking, what have we learned from the work being done with ICCB that can benefit this project? That's a terrific question. So we did work, as I think we said earlier, we did do work with ICCB and the Department of Commerce over the last year or so, looking at hosting regional forums around the state and the economic development regions, and soliciting input from employers as well as other partners in workforce and education to really drive the development of strategic directions for workforce education that ICCB is pursuing. And Jennifer, I'll just do this broad brush. If you want to jump in, certainly do. But I think, just from my perspective, I facilitated a number of those forums. I think we learned a tremendous amount about sort of first employers' pain points in terms of what's difficult for them related to workforce, whether that's, numbers of people, difficulty finding people, skill gaps, that sort of a thing. And I think we learned a tremendous amount as well, and this is something we'll be talking about, I anticipate, in our regional planning groups with you, about what employers and industry broadly sort of expect from our partner systems in terms of the way that we collaborate with them and deliver services to them. And I think, speaking very broadly, I think we heard a lot about kind of wanting to be approached in more efficient ways by collaboratives of partners rather than by agency, by individual agencies. and they want the process to be more seamless and transparent. And they're really very interested in training models, for instance, that that we often call employer-driven or work-based, that are really kind of contextualized learning. So I think we got a lot of intelligence from the business and industry community about what their particular pain points are with their workforce needs, and how they would like to see public partners, if you will, in education and training work together to more seamlessly meet those needs. And that's all critical intelligence that we will bring to our work with the regions. And because we did do forums in each of the 10 regions around the state, we have notes from all of those that we can bring into our conversations. So Jennifer, I see that you're typing. I hope that was sort of a broad brush summary that was valuable. I see you're typing. If you want to chime in over the phone or keep typing a note, I wanted to give you an opportunity to jump in.
This is Jennifer Foster, the Illinois Community College Board, and thank you. I really think that this is really the report and also the forums that were conducted are a good way to use that information as a baseline, and then take that information and move it and expand upon it, and really focusing in on what's happening at the regional level. And I think, all of this information will have a great impact on what types of plans come from the regional level. And really, the focus on those essential skills or soft skills that employers talk about, those are all things. And I just really see that report, the ICCB report, in partnership with DCO, as a way of just a base knowledge of what we needed to know in going into this process.
Terrific. Jennifer, thanks so much. Yeah, absolutely. We got some wonderful intelligence that you're, absolutely right. I think is a really important baseline that we can expand upon as we move forward. Thanks so much for chiming in. It's nice to hear your voice. Just in the interest of time, we'll keep our eye on the chat questions or comments that are coming through, but in the interest of time, I'm going to keep moving us forward, but certainly if anything else comes up, do chime in. But just wanted to get us wrapped up here on time. Really appreciate the comments that you have shared. And, in terms of our process moving forward, again, your facilitators will be reaching out to your teams once that point of contact is identified. And the conversation that we're having today is obviously just a start. We're going to be really interested, obviously, in learning as much as we can about each of your regions and your priorities and how we can, best assist you. So this is really just the beginning, and we're very excited to continue that conversation moving forward. Jeff, I see your question. If your facilitator doesn't contact you, how do I connect with them? I will personally assure you that your facilitator will contact you. But one of the things that we will make sure to do as well is to list, once we have made the facilitator assignments to each of your teams, we'll get all their contact info together, and we will share that back through the team so that they'll have your contact information, but you'll have theirs as well. But I want you to know that we have a good responsive team of facilitators, so I'll make sure that everybody hears from who they need to hear from. Thanks for that question. So anyway, just in terms of quote-unquote homework moving forward, some of our immediate next steps that we want teams to keep on their radar. And again, the facilitators will be reaching out to you to talk through this more. But continue to work on thinking about who you want on your regional teams, how might you want to expand that, building those out, bringing additional partners in, and thinking about who might make sense for your team for being that single point of contact from just a communications perspective, giving some thought to that. We will very shortly be making the facilitator assignments to the 10 teams. And having facilitators follow up with you, and they're happy to work with you on the team development piece as well as any other questions that you may have. And we will be, we will be working on getting that self-assessment tool finalized and distributed to the teams. Facilitators will do that to you, share that with you in advance of the regional meetings. So that's kind of key homework for us and some next steps for you all as teams. Pam, your question, how can this regional planning consider regions that cross state lines? It's a terrific question, and we're very well aware that in Illinois, you guys have a lot of regional economies that cross state lines and are multi-state. I think certainly as we're working through the data component piece of that, that's something that our partner Scott Shealy is really mindful of. And I think as we are working with you in your team, that's going to be, I think, a key question for the team to consider in terms of strategies it's already pursuing or ways that it may want to enhance the kind of work that they're doing across state lines to align with their actual regional economies, recognizing they don't end at the Illinois border. So that's certainly something that we'll want to take up with you if that's a question or a priority for your development of strategies moving forward. It's a great question, and we're real mindful of it. Thank you for bringing it up. Yeah, Carrie's pointing out to me, sorry. Thank you, Carrie. We are not, for purposes of this project, the data that we are providing regional teams is not interstate, but we are very aware of that as an issue. And, again, that's something that we'd want to work with you, on in your planning. And so, if that's an interest, I think we, obviously want to be able to talk with you further about that. Okay, Lisa, thanks for your question. Sorry, Carrie, was that you?
Oh, no, it's no problem. I was just actually going to mention that and ask Eric if he would put the download pod back up. Oh, here it comes. It'll be here, right? There we go. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Eric. Okay. Any other questions, thoughts? Okay, well, I just want to I personally want to thank you for your time and the opportunity to talk with you today and hear from you today. And again, really very, very excited to be, at the beginning of this process with you, and excited to be getting into it with our regional teams and learning more as we move forward. I'm going to turn it back to Carrie and also give the Department of Commerce folks an opportunity to chime in before we wrap up this morning.
Thank you, Gretchen. Really appreciate it, and we certainly do appreciate your interaction with us. It is difficult to really have a dialogue sometimes when we're meeting virtually, but appreciate those of you who chimed in, either through the chat or over the phone. And just wanted to point out our contact information is here. Should you have any questions or concerns or feel like, maybe you should have been contacted by your facilitator and you haven't, feel free to reach out to either Gretchen or I, and we're happy to follow up with you. So don't hesitate to do that. Julio, do you have any closing remarks before we end?
No, I just want to thank everybody, and I think it's important for everyone to just remember that part of what we're attempting to do collectively is to begin a process of planning, and that part of what we're really doing is trying to sort of bring everyone sort of to the same level of thinking and to level the playing fields for people who are sort of new to this work, and to try to make sure that we're, as much as possible, giving you the kind of data that will allow you to make really informed decisions and choices around where we focus our resources going forward and how we can better align our work. And I'm always very excited about a lot of the things that I see going out and visiting in various regions and various local areas. But I think this will give us also an opportunity to highlight a lot of those efforts in a way that we haven't done before. And I think it's also really important for all of you to know that we as state agencies are working very closely together and have, as much as we can, continue to try to talk with each other about how to, continue to align ourselves at the state level. And we have been talking as well with the governor's office and aligning ourselves with, the vision of the governor and what he would like to see in the areas of workforce education and economic development and the alignment of all of our efforts in those areas. So, again, I want to thank Mayor and their team, Carrie, Gretchen, Eric. Thank you, and I want to thank all of you again for participating. And we'll certainly be in touch either through Mirror or through other vehicles as we continue through this process. So thank you all.
Thank you. Everyone have a great day. Thanks again. Bye-bye.